Very good. Okay, if you could do the roll call, please.
Good morning, Board of Governance. I will be taking roll call now. Representing Lieutenant William Hutchinson, Roman Ruiz. Representing District 2 Supervisor Karen Spiegel, Amber Smalley. Representing Dr. Howdigi with IHP, Elisa Padilla. Dr. Kendrick Davis. Bill Blankenship. Chair Leticia de Lara.
Here.
Dr. Charles Lee Johnson. Linda Brock. Representing Carol Alba, Lucy Sella Martin. You could probably take a seat on that last. Anise Smith.
Present.
And Karen Roper. And we have established quorum. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Zuli. Okay, so next we'll move on to item 2.0, the consent items, which include the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as submitted? Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first by Karen and second by Anise. Do we do roll call or are we okay with doing the by? So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
There any noes? Abstentions? There being none, unanimous. Next item, we have 3.0, public comment. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on an item that is not listed on the agenda? Is there any member on the remotely that's joining us that would like to make a public comment at this time? There being none, we'll move on to the next item, which is 4.0, new business. And we have the Board of Governance seats and election, and I will turn it over to Tanya.
Thank you, and good morning, Board of Governance members, members of the public, and those of you that are here, but also those of you that are calling in virtually. We wanted to provide an update. We came in with the expectation that we would be able to announce the results of the election. As each of you know, we have 6 seats that are open. However, as of yesterday, we have not yet met quorum. As with any other motions or elections that move forward, we are required to have a minimum number of COC member agencies vote. So to that, we are going to have to extend the voting period for an additional week. So through next Thursday, our team has already started reaching out to agencies to alert them that their ballots are needed to finalize the election results. What I did want to share with you is that yesterday during our regular Continuum of Care membership meeting, which our chair, Karen Roper, who is here today, and Michelle Davis, our vice chair, facilitate, we had over 100 members on the call, which is pretty standard for those meetings. But we had pretty much every single person that has been nominated for a seat, join that meeting and talk about their interest in the board. And I will say that while oftentimes there's a lot of interest in joining this board, I think the one thing that's really telling to me is we really have a wide representative of different individuals from different sectors in the government sectors, and the universities, from nonprofits and private and public organizations. So I think it just really speaks to the value that the community is seeing in working with the Riverside County Continuum of Care, in the individual missions of the organizations that contribute to this work, but also recognizing that on a broader systems level, this is really where policy and changes to address homelessness really start and happen. So again, we are disappointed that we're not able to have final results today, but also recognize the importance of our democracy and making sure that we meet things like quorum and give everyone a fair chance to vote. So we're going to extend it for an additional period through next Thursday, and then we'll make an announcement by way of email so that the next time that we meet, which I believe is scheduled for August sometime, we will have our newly elected members here with us. Before closing, I did want to acknowledge the members on this board who are currently occupying a seat that is up for re-election. Dr. Ben Haregi with Inland Empire Health Plan is not here with us today, but Alyssa is sitting in as his proxy. And as all of you know, he was recently elected to serve as vice chair on this board. We also said goodbye 2 months ago to Taryn Edwards, who served as a former council member with the city of Riverside. And then we also have Dr. Kendrick Davis with the University of California, Riverside. He is also here today and also seeking re-election. And then we have Leticia de Lara, who's with the Regional Access Project, serving as our chair for the Board of Governance and previously serving as vice chair for many, many years. I think too many for me to count, Leticia, way before my time. And then Angelina Ko, who is the director of Shelter from the Storm, not here with us today, but again, is not known to miss many meetings. And like all the others that I just announced, was with us at the Continuum of Care meeting tomorrow and spoke about why she also wanted to renew her position. So more to come on this item, but I just wanted to make sure that the board and the public had that update. Again, an official email will be going out with the attached ballot so that we can continue to get those in. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya, for giving us that update, and we look forward to having this issue resolved on next Thursday. If we will move on to the next item, 4.2, the COC investment summary and future funding opportunities. Tanya.
Just taking a minute here to make sure that I can provide you guys with a good summary of what is to come. So we know that a key part of why the board meets is to consider different federal, state, and local funding opportunities that are made available. We want to make sure that the general public, especially providers who partner with us to do housing work to solve homelessness for all populations, have a good general idea of what is to come, because we recognize that oftentimes when we open a bidder's application for a funding opportunity that is available, usually those time periods are 4 weeks. And while 4 weeks may sound like a lot, if you have been involved in the grant writing process, you know that federal and state grants are never easy to complete. There is a lot of information required, not only in developing the design of your program, but also, being able to respond to how your project will align with our homeless action plan, what outcomes your program will be able to accomplish. And so we have really been intentional about starting up conversations with providers as early as possible, well before an RFP process. And an RFP stands for request for proposals. We often, interchange that between a bidder's application, but it's essentially the same thing. And so we have a few funding opportunities that are going to be coming up in the near future. These are funding opportunities that are not yet open, but we want to encourage you, those that are here with us today and those of you that are joining us virtually, to help us spread the word so that we can help increase the number of ideas and increase potential partnerships now to help expand potential projects. So what is up and coming? We wanted to share with you that between July and August, we anticipate releasing an RFP that will have about $5 million available through the state's Housing Homeless Assistance Program that can support projects delivering street outreach and engagement services, in addition to emergency shelter services, and what the state calls rapid rehousing or temporary rental assistance programs to quickly ensure people have a pathway to get off the streets, as well as permanent supportive housing, which provides a more long-term pathway for individuals who are disabled and need ongoing rental assistance, but coupled with intensive supportive services to be able to sustain that housing. So again, I don't have definite dates for you on when that RFP will be made available, except for the approximate time of July and August. But know that when it does open, again, they're typically open for a 4-week period. So we would encourage you to begin to consider what projects you have been envisioning or are on your wish list, what relationships need to happen and I would encourage anyone that's interested to review our homeless action plan, because that really is the roadmap for how projects are prioritized, how they are selected. And, you know, I think some of the really big things that we're looking for when we look at the homeless action plan are, you know, does the project create a quick pathway for someone that's on the street to get into housing? Does it ensure that once people are linked to housing, that they're maintaining that housing? And so we know that while housing first is the goal, that really to make sure that people get to a place of self-sufficiency where they are healthy and can lead productive lives, that they're going to need a realm of supports, right? They're going to need medical care. They're going to need educational supports. They're going to need help navigating daycare. As a new mom, I can totally relate. So think about all those different things and what key partnerships would be critical. And the really cool thing in being able to announce this early on is we can help facilitate those connections now. So if you're thinking about a project and you're like, I'd really like to have a connection with a street medicine provider, reach out to us. Reach out to me, Amy, Mariel, and Zuli, anybody from our team. We are here to support you through that process. If you're like, oh, you know what, it'd be really cool to partner with some type of a nursing program, we have public health nurses and our access to our Riverside University Health System, who has access to a range of clinical therapists and other professionals. So help us help you. And as I say that, I also recognize that while our county departments also carry heavy lift, we have amazing nonprofits who also provide similar work, and we can facilitate those connections as well. And I would it would not be appropriate for me to leave out cities. Cities play a very critical role in engaging and helping us resolve homelessness. And I think that's why it's really important. And I love that we host these meetings at cities, because it's just a reminder to our nonprofits, to our county departments, to consider how you may want to partner with a city or a region of cities to be able to support a particular cause. So that's up and coming. We also know that every year we're eligible to renew approximately $14 million in U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development funds that support our Continuum of Care program. The board, you're familiar with this program because every year we come to you with a range of projects that already receive funding, that are reviewed and ranked, and you have an opportunity to decide which projects, based on their performance outcomes and how they align their outcomes with the Homeless Action Plan, on whether they should continue to be renewed, or if we should bring on new providers. So we'll be going through that process. The interesting part, well, it's not the key factor here, is that we never know when HUD is going to release the NOFO. We just know that it happens usually sometime between July and September has been our our experience. So as soon as that is out, we will let you know. But what I would share with any new projects that are interested in looking at a HUD Continuum of Care program is to reach out to us. We can provide you with an overview of the existing projects that are funded. And usually for HUD grants, we're really encouraging collaborations because as we've talked about with this board, HUD grants in comparison to the state grant that I referenced earlier are much more complex. They tend to be very black and white. They don't allow for much flexibility. As an example, we can't use the funding to pay for emergency shelter. And even how supportive services are carried out is usually restricted to street outreach and support coordinated entry efforts. So connect with us. I'd love to provide you with an overview of what's funded, and I would strongly encourage new organizations to consider partnering with organizations that have received funding before, so that you have that ongoing support and you can build on that experience to carry out a successful program. The last thing I will end with saying is in speaking to the state's HAP Round 6, if you've been watching the governor's budget, I'm going to slow down because I realize I speak really, really fast, is that the governor had proposed significant cuts to homeless programs across the state. And that was a big conversation that we had, or that each of you had during our February and even April meetings. We were looking at a $10 million cut to our HAP programs moving forward. And that's significant. I think at our last board meeting, I shared that we've been able to assist over 1,000 people a year just through that program alone. And so we were really, really concerned about how that would impact our ability to meet the existing need, especially when we know that, right, housing costs are continuing to grow, inflation is still an issue, and our housing providers that are on the front lines are telling us we are continuing to have a hard time finding housing for people. The good news is that through legislative efforts, the legislator has added HAP Round 6 back into the budget.
That's awesome.
Acknowledge that. And it really had to do with your advocacy efforts across the state that really got us to that win. What I will share is that we know that what is coming is that being able to draw down the funding is going to require more, that's going to come with much more intensity, a much higher administrative burden, because there has been a lot of questions raised about accountability and the use of these funds and whether communities are really using it to move the needle forward. We know locally, and would invite the state to look at Riverside County on a local level, because again, when we've looked at our system performance level, again, we've been able to demonstrate more housing placements this year over the last 3 years. So to that end, we know that Riverside County is a model to other communities, but also recognize that the state has a responsibility to really measure homeless progress by looking at every single community. So sometimes good work can be overshadowed, but I want to assure you that what we're doing here is good. And previous presentations where we've talked about how we've been able to guarantee housing to 1 in 3 individuals that have come through our door, and ensuring 86% of those individuals that we house stay housed really speak to that. So thank you, congratulations to each of you and all of our participants, because that is really, really exciting news. That funding will likely not be made available until next year. Usually we receive our award notice in January or February of 2025, but know that once we get that, just like HAP Round 5, which I started with, we'll have a similar conversation, prep everyone for that, and then release a local RFP. So I know I threw a lot of information your way, but that's also what I'm here for. And as always, feel free to follow up with me, but I'll go ahead and pause now and see if there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya, for all that information. I'm going to start off by asking board members if they have any questions or comments, and then I will ask the public if they have any questions or comments. So starting with Karen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a comment and then a question. Tanya, I just want to thank and acknowledge you and the staff for being so proactive. I hope that all of the people that are listening in and those that are here in the audience can really take in what you just offered, which is trying to give advance notice and honor one of our strategic goals, which is capacity building, which is something, as I serve as the chair of the Continuum of Care, has been a big passion of mine, so that we can do advanced planning, try to create partnerships. You don't have to do it all. You can partner, like Tanya said, to really build capacity and to be competitive in these grants. And so, this is not like you have to guess. That homeless action plan, that's honoring the community's will for everything that was important to us, all of our goals and values. And then the data drives how those funds are allocated to different areas in the county. So it's all very open and transparent. And Tanya, I just want to thank you for that. And I do want to make a suggestion. If we can craft a message, I'd love to get it out to the Continuum of Care to sort of summarize what you just said, so that if there are folks that are not listening in, we can let those providers know there is an opportunity, to talk to you guys, to be linked with other organizations. If we could send that out, I would love it. So I just want to thank you. Good job. And then I don't know if this is too premature to ask you about HAP, but the action that the legislature took, do you know, is this a one-time thing, or are they looking to make it sustainable funding?
So HAP has always been a one-time investment, which is, I'll keep it at that. It's always been a one-time investment because it's come every single year since 2021. Communities have really relied on it to keep programs operating and support new programs to launch. But as of now, it's round 6 is here. There is still uncertainty about future rounds of funding.
Well, we know what we need to advocate for, because it's flexible funding, communities need it. And we know that this state, right, we have the highest homeless population. So let's keep up the good advocacy work, everybody.
Aaron, Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, this is just a very quick comment, just in full agreement with everything that you just shared. We had a spirited conversation a couple of months back about smaller agencies and their ability to compete in. And I just want to say thank you for, I think this type of conversation lends towards those agencies that are smaller, maybe outside of the game, having these conversations so that they can be inside of the game and be able to compete. And so I hope that all who are listening, whether virtually or in the room, if you're representing smaller agencies, the encouragement is partnership. The encouragement is to go after. The encouragement is to have the information ahead of time. These are the things that we're looking for. This is the homeless action plan. All the keys to make sure that responses to proposals are successful. And so just wanted to comment on that. This is one of the things that this board wanted to ensure that we did to make it an equal playing field. And so I think we did a lot in that way today. I want to comment on that.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Any other board members have any comments or questions? Okay, any member of the public have any comments or questions on this item? Yes. Can you stand, please? And the mic is coming your way.
Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Burgess C. Nickerson, and I'm a person of a small entity. I just started my nonprofit. It's called Mondukes Housing, Transitional Housing. So I do need to find out how to get connected so that I can be a advocate for the homelessness right here in Hemet, California.
We hope you'll join the Continuum of Care if you're not currently a member, and we can get you connected for that.
And I am a member. I forgot to say that.
All right.
Thank you. Any other member of the public have any comments or questions? And About on remote? No? Okay, very good. Thank you, Tanya, for great information and for working so hard to make this happen and for sharing the information. And we want to get the word out, so. Okay, next item on the agenda is the 4.3 Assembly Bill number 12. And back to Tanya.
All right, so Assembly Bill number 12. During our last Board of Governance meeting, one of our providers, I believe Karen Younglow from Lighthouse Social Services, spoke very eloquently about this bill, which reduces the ability for landlords to pay more than, or for landlords to receive more than double one-time rent towards security deposit. And so the reason I'm hesitating is because previously you could pay a landlord 2 times the rent towards a security deposit. And I believe that it was Dr. Ben Haregi who suggested that we continue the discussion and schedule it for today's Board of Governance meeting so that we could just, again, have a more thorough review on the impacts of Assembly Bill number 12. And I wanted to also share that I invited Ernie Regularly with Riverside Legal Aid here with us today. And so he will be jumping in to help me with this presentation. I had a full-on conversation with him on my way here to this board meeting, and he is very, very knowledgeable and convinced me as a housing provider that this could really turn out to be a good thing. Again, with this Assembly Bill, what it does is it reduces the ability for a landlord to take more than 1 time's rent towards a security deposit. Why that raised a question for a lot of our housing providers is that a lot of the individuals that we're working with to get housed oftentimes have evictions, poor credit, and even if they don't, you think about young adults, and we're going to be focusing on a conversation later today that looks at building up youth programs in Riverside County for youth who exit the foster care system and have never rented their own property. Oftentimes, right, their application can be overlooked with someone who has stronger credit, has had a rental agreement before, which again is not even tied to anything that they necessarily done, but just based on their history. So all of that said, providers oftentimes use the double security deposit as a tool to be able to convince a landlord to rent to their participants. And so in this push to align with all of the goals that we have as a system to increase the number of housing placements, we know that there's pros and cons to everything. And the concern here is, how are we going to ensure that as a system, we're providing our partners who are out in the field, working with clients, taking them to meet with landlords to have tools they need to secure that unit for their client. While also keeping in mind that oftentimes in today's market, a landlord has 5 applications in front of them for 1 available unit. So if we advance to the next slide, I just wanted to share some of the opportunities that we have discussed as a continuum of care and some of the programs that we have made available. To Karen's reference about state funding being much more flexible, that is absolutely the case, and an opportunity that we see in being able to ensure landlords continue to rent to our clients. HAP funding can be used to support what we call landlord incentives and or mitigation funds that would ensure that if there are damages to a unit that our clients cause, because we also know, right, there's 2 sides, and sometimes that happens. We'll move in someone to a unit. They are struggling with a series of issues, and I'll share hoarding as an example, sometimes is a problem. And so oftentimes we really should be looking at how we can help make up the difference for the damages so that we can not only maintain that relationship for that landlord, which is key. We need them. They're a partner in this work, but so that we can make that unit available to someone else. Because remember, we always have a list. Every program has a list of people that are waiting for housing assistance. So mitigation funds that can be created using HAP funding are a pathway where agencies can supplement to pay for damages. We talk about landlord incentives as an opportunity to create bonus dollars for landlords who are participating or renting to our participants for the first time. Mirroring what the Housing Authority has done, what I know the City of Corona, City of Riverside, City of Murrieta, so many other cities have done in our region for landlords who are renting to or working with us for the first time. Oftentimes they'll offer $300 to $500 sign-on bonus for being able to do that. So we see that as a pathway or as a tool for our providers. I wanted to bring special attention to a recent initiative that we launched, which is our Hope to Home initiative. And this is a countywide program that is being managed out of our office, where we are utilizing a tool known as PadMission. And you've heard me link it to, or that it's similar to Zillow, in which we're working with different housing navigators, or I say real estate agents from each of the different nonprofits and county departments that do this work. And they are adding units that they identify into this platform. So it's a shared database that housing navigators, as they're working with the client, can go on and specify, I'm looking for a 1-bedroom unit, and that landlord has already been vetted and has said, yes, I will work with the homeless assistance program. So that has been a great tool. I checked in with Terrell from our team who manages that program, and he shared that we have approximately 40 units right now available. So it's up and running, it's working. And again, we see that working and helping out with this effort. Through this program, we also offer a damage claim reimbursement, again, which is very similar to a mitigation fund, of up to $3,000 for any damages that are needed in addition to legal costs and cleaning costs that are often needed to turn over the unit. So we included the information for the program there. And then with that, Ernie, I will turn it over to you. We are really looking forward to hearing from you on more on what landlords and tenants can do. And then I think what you educated me on, which would be helpful for this board and our general public, was it looks like there's a waiver there for mom and pop landlords. So I'll let you speak to that. Thank you.
Good morning, board. My name's Ernie Reguli. I'm the Deputy Director of Riverside Legal Aid. And sort of by background, I've also been a partner with the county in the County Rental Assistance Program. I'm part of the CARE team, the Homelessness Prevention team, which I'll be on right after I finish here, presenting a case. I'm also on the Elder Abuse Forensic Center. So I look at Riverside County. I'm actually, I forget, honestly, I go where people ask because what we do is important and how we do it. Collaboration, look, we're in a hole and we're not getting out of it if we don't do it. We cannot do that individually. So it's interesting when Tanya asked me to speak on this, because the bill and the changes are relatively simple. It's 1-in-1 is the general rule. 1 month's rent, 1 month's deposit. That's where you start. Is there an exception? Well, let's keep in mind, while there may be exceptions, not if you're a service member. And service member, as a retiree, as an AGR from the California Guard, I'm pretty clear. A lot of people don't realize service member is broadly defined. So it's important that people look at it. It's a member of the Guard. It's a member of the State Guard, which is a non-federal entity. And believe it or not, California's got a naval militia. So you've got to look at that. And yeah, same response in naval. Look, I was in the division. I'm like, where's that come from? So you got to look at it. But service members, when they qualify, and they've even made it a more simplified definition. And then you also have to bring in USERRA. Another discussion, but that's 1-in-1. I only highlight that because as somebody who deployed hundreds of soldiers, that matters. And then we get to what I call the mom and pop exception. And that's essentially if you qualify, and I'll get to what mom and pop is in a sec, you can go back to the traditional 2 months, 2 months rent as a deposit, 1 month deposit. And how do you qualify? Well, it's if you have no more than 2 buildings and no more than 4 units. And the kicker there is 4 units for rent. So in theory, you could have a mom and pop with 2 duplexes and that's easy. And a lot of them live in there, then that's only 3 units for rent. So you could get up to a credible claim, and that's going to be for the mom and pop to actually substantiate. You could have mom and pop living in 1 unit of a 4-plex. I use 4-plexes because 4-plexes can be bought with a traditional mortgage, and that's a typical investment tool for retirees. You could have them living in 1 unit, their kids legitimately not taking rent in another one, being not rented, and they're still renting out 4 units. So you could have it's important because a lot of people look at 4 and say, well, you got 6 units total. That doesn't work. So do a little looking and we can expand the folks that can actually be rented, or pardon me, folks that can take advantage of the increased rental amount. Now, I use the term mom and pops. The statute uses natural person. And I'm going to get to why natural person is important in a minute. But because we are seeing in the Tenant Protection Act, we've seen a new vehicle. We have seen investment companies or REITs using trusts that aren't corporations, that are not LLCs, in an attempt to fall outside of the exemption requirements of the TPA. So the legislature was pretty smart on this. A natural person. You can have an LLC, and as back in private practice, that was a investment protection mechanism that we would recommend. But all of the members need to be natural people. So when you introduce a corporation or somebody, you're outside of this. That's a bad tool. So as long as you have a natural person, I'm not going to drill down too much. Lawyers, we can do that, and we're really bad at it. As long as you got natural people, you can be able to provide the deposit they're used to providing. So why is that a good thing? It's a good thing because curiously, we're in Hemet. Now Hemet, and this is well documented, Hemet happens to be a stronghold of one of the state's largest slumlords. Now I can know that, I can say that, and I'll say it on the record. It's a family called the Najars. I've known them for 20 years, actually more than that, back when LA had Division 20, where all the evictions were. NPR did a wonderful story on them. Back in 2010, they had 170 LLCs. You have to use a LLC finder to figure it out. And they have at least five different management companies. One of them is Pro. Why does that matter to you? Because deposits for a mom and pop are meant to replace damage. They're to provide security. They're to say, hey, look, Tanya, you got a resident that maybe has some sketchy credit. And I was assisting a group of fire victims in Moreno Valley, and one of the ladies applied for a landlord who had 400 applications for one. She was a good landlord, and people knew that, but 400 applications. So you've got folks that need help, and a deposit is meant there to give the landlord security. Pro management, when I talk about them managing slum, I can tell you because I go out, I take the photographs, I work with an investigative agency. The reason I take the photos is I will be the witness. I'm saying that because when I make this claim, it's pretty serious, but there are hundreds of homes in this city, not too far from here, that are horrific condition. That company that had a $1.5 billion of assets in 2010, their model is to keep the deposit for no reason at all. And they just do because we're bigger than you. And that's not really what helping residents is about. And that's not really what mom and pops encouraging people. Now, during rental assistance, one of the concerns that we had with the federal guidelines was to essentially protect mom and pops. And that protects the counties, the cities, because if mom and pops go under, taxes aren't being paid. Properties are being run down. It's taxing the city. It's a different business model for mom and pops. So being able to give them the money to work with them, and what I hear Tanya say, those are pretty encouraging. Now, they cannot demand or receive, more than 2 months. But if you have a mechanism that allows these individuals, and that's who we really should be working with, not real estate REITs. It's interesting. We have folks from Riverside, UC Riverside, because during the pandemic, I assisted literally hundreds. I think we topped into the thousands of college students. A lot of the college housing out there is corporate. One of them is a Chinese real estate investment fund. That resulted in a class action lawsuit. None of these landlords are local. All of the money goes out. And the business model as compared to mom and pops rely upon that property. That's their investment. They make a few $100 a month that supplements their income. And that's what we want to facilitate as a community, not extracting the money and sending it elsewhere. I did not find one housing provider that was holding hundreds of students to leases for properties they had signed a year prior, because that's the business model, that was local. So it became a challenge. And we worked. I sat on a panel with UC Riverside, the ombudsman there, their general counsel, and we worked to figure it out. It's a little bit, how do I get, it's easier for me to get off. How do I get there? And they're two competing business models. And the mom and pop exception allows us to build community, build relationships. Mom and pops are more likely, look, we have mom and pop slumlords. We get them all the time. I'm not excusing them, but they need the property. They rely upon the property. Pro management, they hold property, tenants are there, and it's the land value. It's the land value because when I take you to roofs that are failing, homes that have more rat families that I can see than human families, failing roofs, you don't want to talk about the electrical. And it's not, I have hundreds of photos in a separate venue. I will show you the photos. Tanya's here nudging me out. But the point is, yes, I get that it seems a little bit scary, but with what I heard Tanya talking about and our ability to build community, build relationships, and actually put money into the community, not extract it, not pay for a $12 million home on a private island with their own vineyard in LA where they don't care. That's a whole nother story. I could talk for days on pro, but.
Is there any questions from the board of Ernie?
I have comment.
Karen?
So, Tanya and the team, thank you so much for the really important information, and especially thank you for all the advocacy and legal work that you do. It's so critical. I think that in all things, we need to figure out how to strike a balance, and obviously we need the private sector. We know that our clients are competing in a very tight housing market. And so what I'm mostly encouraged to hear is that we need to continue to figure out how to have flexible funding opportunities and incentivize those landlords. And Tanya mentioned Corona. I do want to give a plug. Think about your cities if you're not partnering with them. And in Corona, Norco, we have local city funds that aren't as restrictive, and we can use those to pay for things that sometimes other grants can't pay for. We will offer a landlord 3 times the rent if that's where the client wants to go, and that's going to be an incentive to kick the doors to housing open, or even have our case managers say, we will provide 12 months worth of rent, plus the landlord incentive and the security deposit and case management for 12 months That's a big incentive for landlords. Whatever side of the equation they're on, if we're needing to get doors to housing open, that's what we want to do, right? We want to get people into housing. And so cities can be that partner for flexible funding. And also, like Tanya mentioned, our other funding sources that can be flexible, like our encampment funds, where we can actually do the same thing that I just mentioned. So I'm encouraged that we want to figure out how to strike that balance and kick those doors open to housing.
You know, if I can offer one thing before Tanya kicks me. One thing, you know, when you're talking about creativity, I mentioned taxes during rental assistance. That was a concern. It started out with how do we preserve mom and pops? It became, we need to keep people in, and it became a lot of that money went to these larger entities that go out of your communities. So if you're talking about preserving mom and pops, taxes are one thing. I might suggest to your municipalities, if you want to work with mom and pops, consider tax credits, because then you know exactly where the credits go. They're going to that unit that is conforming with the statute. Your suggestion also works as long as you have more than 6 months of future rent.
Yeah.
That does present some problems for the landlord, actually. But that is certainly a good option, and that carried over into the new statute. So that's a wonderful option.
Thank you, Ernie.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions, comments from board members? How about the public? Is there any member of the public that has a question or a comment on this topic? Step forward, stand up, please.
Good morning. My name is Christian Tigas with the City of Hemet. I'm their newly Community Solutions Coordinator and City Ombudsman as well. One of the issues that we are obviously dealing with, which you just said the magic word, which is pro-management.
I'm not making it up then.
I know you're not. So my question to you is, are you working with municipalities to create some local, at least some local civil codes to kind of restrict and maybe even curtail the evictions that they're doing, and even the kind of we're looking at kind of revamping even our own housing authority as far as putting in like tenant inspections and things like that the city has to go through as well to give them an occupancy, a certificate of occupancy. Are you working with kind of our city attorneys and things like that as well?
I am not working with city attorneys. We have partnerships with other municipalities, Moreno Valley, Palm Springs. But my role is primarily, and I am funded for advocacy to do this. As Tanya knows, I kicked myself off my own soapbox. You want to talk? I'll give you my cell number and we'll talk. And that is open to anybody. I mean, the standing joke at APS is my cell number's on the bathroom wall. Call. Yeah, as long as it doesn't go out to the general public, I'll talk to you, and I'll talk with you right after this.
Thank you. We'll exchange information for sure.
Thank you, Ernie. Appreciate all the information that you shared today. Okay. We have another comment? Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Jerry with Step Up. I do outreach. One of the obstacles I've seen lately is members who are approved for different programs. There's an application fee with many of the property owners. So currently, I spoke with a member last week, and they've applied to 12 different places. They've paid the application fees. They have not been accepted. They're now short on funds, and that seems to be a very big frustration for the population. It's just a comment.
Thank you.
Can I just jump in and say thank you for that feedback? I know Terrell from our Hope to Home initiative is listening. Terrell, we might want to look at how we utilize our state funding. I've given a lot of credit to HAP, but I'm glad Alyssa's here from IEHP because they have provided us with, you're going to have to help me with the acronym HIP funding.
Yeah.
HHIP funding, $40 million from our managed care plans, both IEHP and Molina, that has been used to launch this initiative. But like HAP funding, it is extremely flexible. So we will take your feedback and look at how maybe we can insert some dollars to support additional application fees that might exceed funding that agencies already get to support rapid rehousing, because yeah, it can get pretty costly, especially if you're paying, it used to be $25 per application fee. I know I've seen some fees at $40 an application. So that is definitely a burden. So thank you for that feedback.
Thank you, Tanya. We have a question from Anise.
Good morning, Tanya. Did I hear you say on the Hope to Home that there are 40 units available now?
Yes.
So those units are, or those landlords have already indicated they will accept a voucher to that unit?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And that's all over the county, 40 units right now.
They are spread throughout the county. Yes. And again, it's working because it's a partnership. So while we have a housing specialist on our team that is making sure that database is up and running and is also calling landlords, it's really a network. So the nonprofits and other county departments that do this work and have dedicated housing specialists, housing navigators, are adding their units into that system. So again, it's through collaboration. I will tell you, we tried this maybe 6-7 years ago, pre-COVID, and I always talk about the level of competition that existed then. But again, was largely due to low rental vacancy rates, and right, everyone is trying to help the person in front of them. So if I give you my landlord, he only has 2 units, that means I'm going to lose out on being able to help my client. So I'm thankful that we've been able to take it up to this scale, but it's only because of the trust, the collaboration that has been built. And again, as a thanks to this board and our entire Continuum of Care membership body, which Karen and Michelle help lead. So yes, 40 units available today. If you're not a partner in Hope, from Hope to Home, I know Terrell from our team who is leading that effort would love to hear from you. All you have to do is email us at coc@rifco.org.
Thank you, Tanya. Anise, any other questions? Any other board members have any questions or comments? Okay, we will move on to the next item. YHDP funding recommendation. This is an action item. We'll start off with Tanya providing us with information.
All right, let's jump in. So YHDP stands for the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program. And again, I'll be likely referring to it as YHDP throughout the duration of our conversation. We have been talking about this program since last fall when HUD came and visited our beautiful community and presented us with a very large check of $7.4 million that is going to allow us to support youth housing efforts countywide. What I want to share with you as information before we really dive into the funding recommendations that are being made is that the $7.4 million is available for a 2-year period. So unlike our HUD Continuum of Care programs, this funding will flow through a 2-year cycle. The reassuring news is that the funding will be made available to us every 2 years. So this is not a one-time and done operation. As long as we continue to meet HUD's benchmarks, our local benchmarks that we set, that you have helped drive, then our Continuum of Care will be able to retain this funding. So great news on that end. The other piece is really talking about how we got to the point that we are today. We have been very, very intentional prior to obtaining this funding in building out a youth action board that consists of over a dozen youth members who have lived experience or current experience. Many of them are living through the crisis of homelessness, couch surfing in the present time, are in line for a housing choice voucher, and have been engaged with us in many, many meetings, more meetings than I can count. We probably have about 2 to 3 meetings a week just on YHDP alone. And those youth action board members have been front and center. They've had to be, because we recognize that in order to make decisions about such a such a specific population that they need to drive the conversations. They need to tell us about their experience, what worked, what didn't work, what needs to be changed. Because while I love that I get to come up here and share with you the success that we're making, it's also, I can't do that without really recognizing the gap that we're trying to fill, which is huge. Again, 2 to 3 people that come through our door are waiting for assistance. We are not able to get to them. And if you are a youth who is experiencing homelessness, oftentimes that challenge is even greater because you have very, very little supports, and navigating this system on your own is all too complicated, right? I always share my personal experience. It took me 3 years to work with the COC before I really knew what it consisted of. So the youth have been very involved. We want to thank our HUD TA team, which has been working hand in hand with us, and we couldn't have gotten to this place without them. I also want to call out members from our team. All of you have heard and recognized Monique Guerra, who is our homeless youth coordinator and was key in helping us draft up the application that got us the $7.4 million. And I often share that, again, it took us bringing on someone with lived experience that said, this is what we need to do. And it worked. And I also wanted to emphasize that there are a realm of others on our team that have had many sleepless nights to get to this point. And I know because I'm seeing their emails, I'm getting their text messages. I want to thank Amy Primrose, who supervises our whole YHDP team and is here with us today. I want to thank Gershom, who is stepping into a new role as a community program specialist too, and is going to be stepping into Monique's former role as our homeless youth coordinator. I want to thank Marielle, who I refer to her as if you want to wave, you guys should be waving so everybody can see you. Like Gershom, she's a public policy major from UCR, but just has really brought really great insight from that perspective and has been helping us stay organized, in addition to Zuli and other members from our team. So it has come with a lot of sweat and tears. So let me tell you about the timeline, and then I'll tell you how we arrived where we are. We released an RFP on May 17th, and we kept that open for a 4-week period through June 16th. We received a total of 13 proposals in categories to support permanent supportive, actually, no, I'm saying it wrong. The YHDP application uses different terminology, what they refer to as joint transitional housing and rapid rehousing. So it allows for programs that are serving youth to offer transitional housing, but then graduate youth into a permanent housing option so that they're not having to jump from a different agency or provider to get to a permanent destination. It also provided resources towards a drop-in center, in addition to a youth navigator program that I know the youth were really passionate about because they recognize youth need mentors and coaches to help them along the way. That's the biggest thing that we find with young adults. And then the other categories of funding included a straight transitional housing program, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And then when that application period closed on June 17th, we found that nobody had applied for a permanent supportive housing category. So there was one category where no applications were received. And so we reopened the application period just for that category. We wish we could have given more time, but because of the timeline, we were only able to open it for 3 business days. But if you included the weekends, which I know if you're a grant writer, right, this is your story, you really had 5. And when we did that, we were successful in obtaining 1 application under permanent supportive housing, which is critical because, again, transitional housing and rapid rehousing are really time-sensitive programs. But as I spoke to about earlier, permanent supportive housing recognizes there are youth who are disabled, and that could, whether it's developmental, mentor of physical disability that are going to need more intensive support. So we wanted to make sure we had that as an avenue. So I'm glad that we opened it. I'm glad that somebody responded. Here we are today, a few days later after that RFP closed, which just closed Sunday, presenting to you the funding recommendations that were made through an independent review panel, which consisted of a Youth Action Board member. So every application was reviewed by a youth on our board, and another partner agency that was not conflicted, that has had experience doing this type of work. They reviewed and scored each application, and then we as a team came together to organize those applications by each category using a methodology which mirrors what we've done in the past, breaking down how many youth are homeless in each supervisorial district. So you'll see on the spreadsheet that the new spreadsheet I gave each board member, it was the one that was separate from all the other documents that received. That on this table, I'll give you a minute, we have each program. Next time I know, I'll need to make the font bigger. Organized by district. And on the bottom, you'll see that, for example, in District 1, 36% of all homeless youth identified during the point in time count were in District 1, 12% were in District 2, 5% were in District 3, 27% were in District 4, 20% were in District 5. And so we use that to guide how much money went into each supervisorial district and ultimately each agency. So if you're an agency here that is being recommended for funding and you're knowing that we bumped it up a little or substantially more or reduced your amount, it has to do because we're really trying to align and use the data to align how the funding is distributed so it's equitable. And then lastly, what I want to share with you before going over each project is that with each project being recommended, we're looking at assisting over 233 youth, which is interesting. If you remember, Amy, when we first came to the board, that's what we had estimated. It would be around 250 youth would be provided with housing assistance through this program. But as a result of the drop-in centers and the youth navigation supports, there will actually be over 1,000 youth that are served. So there could be more housing exits because, as Karen Roper always beautifully says, we are looking at this from a system of services perspective. We know we have HAP resources that you manage. We know that there are other HUD continuum of care dollars that you also manage and oversee, that these youth will be able to be plugged in. So our hope, my hope from an accountability measure is that in 2 years, I'll be able to say we house more than 230. And my team will pinch me later if I shoot what I want that number to be. So I'll hold off on that. But any questions there before we jump into which agencies are going to be funded?
Board members, any questions, comments?
Just a
Karen?
quick comment. Thank you for emphasizing, 'cause I think it's important for us to all focus in on how important the point in time count is, because you referenced that the investments are driven by the PIT, and we can all see that the methodology that you used is very clear based on the point in time count by the supervisorial district. So super excited to see we're honoring the data and how important it is.
Thank you. Anise? Anise has a question.
Thank you. I have a question about the notes regarding District 4. Hopefully I'm not getting ahead of you here. It says we're unable to identify a rapid rehousing provider in District 4. Okay, so, okay. So I guess my question is, because I know there are a number of organizations out there who have long-term experience with doing rapid rehousing. Did they provide you with any feedback as to why they were unwilling to apply for this funding?
Do you want to come up?
Hello, everybody. I'm Amy Primrose Puente. Thank you for your question, Anise. Actually, we didn't have any agencies submit proposals to cover District 4. And because we're working on such a tight deadline, we haven't had the opportunity to reach out and get feedback, but we plan to.
And I think I would add that, again, we were very intentional about reaching out to everybody that applied to say, can you meet this gap, as we always do. But I think the other note is that we felt comfortable moving forward, given that while transitional housing / rapid rehousing, right, creates an opportunity for a program to do both. If you look under just the transitional housing category, there's a substantial investment to District 4 under the, and I know I haven't got there yet, but the Martha's Village and Kitchen program. So again, we're just kind of, looking at how we distribute these dollars. Equity is key, and know that at the end of the day, we are open to any suggestions that you, the board, may have. And I mean, I was just talking to a provider on my way here and trying to encourage them, like, can you reconsider this, expanding your reach there? So there might be an opportunity for that in the future, but this is what we have now.
We do have rapid rehousing. Thank you. We do have providers that are serving youth already, but through the YHTP funding, we didn't identify any.
Any other board members have any questions or comments on this item so far? Okay, no, Tanya, go ahead.
All right, so I'll go through this with you because I want to make sure that you have a clearer understanding on who is being recommended for funding, and also that our general public that is here and our partners that are here also have a good idea of what's to come. Because as we move forward with this, what I want to share with you is that we need to submit all these project applications to HUD by July 1st. So it's Thursday. After this board meeting, our team is going to be working aggressively Friday, don't kill me, maybe through the weekend, team, to meet that deadline. And then we should be hearing back late summer about the official awards to these programs. And I believe the anticipated start date is October 1st. So again, very, very aggressive timeline here. So we know we need to begin working with these agencies. We had a total of 14 proposals that were received, and 9 of those proposals are being recommended for funding. The board received this big handout that has all of the project applications and the scores that each project received. You'll see that there's score 1, score 2, and that's just because we took the average of each score. And remember that one score reflects that of a youth action board member and the other of a community member. The other piece that I will share is that, initially we felt that, wow, $6 million is a lot. And when you really look at how much it costs to provide housing, the reality is that you're never going to have enough. So as much as we would have liked to fund everybody, unfortunately, we're not in a position to do that. So that's always difficult. But I want to thank and acknowledge everyone that took the time to submit an application. And I want to remind you that there are other funding opportunities that are up and coming that you already have a proposal for that you should consider resubmitting. So moving towards the agencies that are being recommended for funding, you will see that under the Transitional Housing Rapid Rehousing Program, Path of Life Ministries is being recommended for $1.4 million to serve 47 clients through that program. And they will be serving districts 1, 2, and then we have, it's listed as Moreno Valley College, but I want to draw special attention to this, that this is actually part of the RCC community. And so the Moreno Valley College is proposing to serve districts 3 and 5. And we're proposing an award of $778,000 to serve 11 clients. Under the transitional housing category, Walden Family Services, who is newer. I think this is the second year that they would be receiving funding from us, has agreed to serve districts 1, 2, 3, and 5. And so we're proposing a funding award of $1.2 million to serve 76 clients. And then we have Martha's Village and Kitchen, who is proposing to serve District 4. And they currently have 3 sites that they manage in Indio, Desert Hot Springs, and in Palm Springs, that they would be utilizing these resources for to serve 15 youth. And then the other category is a drop-in center. And there were 2 proposals that were received under this category. We're proposing $540,000 to support Silence Aloud, who has a site in the city of Moreno Valley, and is proposing to serve 250 youth a year. But because this is a 2-year period, it'd be 500 youth a year. And then we have, I'm sorry, I did not spell it out. That's my error. Transgender Health and Wellness, a newer organization, also 2nd year, receiving funding from us. And we are proposing to give them $60,000 to serve 40 individuals. And then under the youth navigation section, Silence Aloud, once again, is being recommended for $360,000. Transgender Health and Wellness is being recommended at $40,000. And then the last category of assistance or project type for permanent supportive housing is being recommended to go towards Sigma Beta. And they have a permanent supportive housing project located in the city of Moreno Valley, but have confirmed that that project can support residents from or youth from across the region. And we are proposing to award them $1 million to serve 12 youth. And that's 12 youth a year. As with all of our housing assistance programs, every provider will tell you there could be the capacity to serve more depending on, how successful each young adult is. If they're able to get employment sooner and they can move them out, then that just gives them an opportunity to serve more. So again, from a full year round perspective, we're looking at 233 youth served. And so with that, I know that's a lot of information. I will pause and see if the board has any other questions. But we are looking and need a motion from the board to move these funding recommendations forward so that we can begin to process our application due to HUD.
Thank you, Tanya. I'm sure we do have some questions and comments, and we will start with Karen.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So a couple of comments. First of all, I know you guys make it look so easy, the staff at HWS, and I just want to acknowledge you, the accelerated timeline that you had to meet with a whole new program, all different new types of regulations, requirements for the development of a plan that had engaged the whole community, right? Is very detailed. And then especially the timeline that you had to meet for this RFP, get this committee together. I mean, it's unbelievable. You think of someone that does like a triple flip when they do acrobat, right? Or somebody that does those amazing things when they're ice skating. They make it look easy, but it's so hard. That's what you guys do. And I just want to thank you because I know all the hours that you guys work, like Tanya mentioned, like the weekends, to just get us to this point. Thank you so much for your dedication and everything that you do to keep all of these different resources coming. It's a lot. It's like drinking water out of a fire hydrant. You guys are phenomenal. And I'm just so grateful to you. And I also, I had a question. So I know that the college systems are really, they're like a catchment area, right? For TAY, we have one college provider, but I believe you guys have set this up as a system. So Tanya, I'm hoping you can kind of explain, because there's multiple colleges that may have TAs. Maybe you can explain that. And then the other thing is I know that this is $6 million. There's other YHTP funds that actually go directly to the youth, I think, for stipends or something. Can you talk about that? Because it's a pretty cool story of what you guys are doing with that money.
Yeah, so I'll touch that one first in regards to planning dollars. So I talked about $7.4 million. Of that, a substantial amount is being set aside for planning to support youth and reimburse them for their time participating in all meetings that relate to youth homelessness. When I talked about the 2 to 3 meetings a week, every single meeting has involved a Youth Action Board member. And so we're thankful that one of HUD's priorities in awarding communities this funding is to ensure that youth are paid for their time to be at the table. And also just recognizing that during our next board meeting, we will have a Youth Action Board member that will be holding a seat. So we'll need a bigger table, and that youth will be compensated for their time and other costs. A lot of that too, I think we also give them a stipend even for traveling to the meetings. So keeping that in mind. In regards to your question about the investment to the Riverside Community College and the Moreno Valley site, is that you're right. RCC is made up of a network of colleges, which include Corona, Norco, San Jacinto, and Moreno Valley College. And so we've been very intentional about bringing them to the table. And, I want to thank you, Karen. While it's nice to, get the compliments and feel good, the one thing I wrote down is we don't do it alone. You guys show up with us. RCC, like the other providers here and those that are on the line, and each of you, we know that there's a lot of time and effort and coordinating of time with your schedules to be here as well. So it's taken, you're right, this has been a very ambitious timeline, but it's been a collective effort. And to the board, I would say, I don't know how many other board meetings require so many special meetings each year. So I thank you for the grace that you've extended to us. So we're excited about working with RCC because, as Karen mentioned, we recognize that oftentimes when we talk about student homelessness, we're thinking about the big universities. And we've all heard the stories of what happens when those colleges close down and sometimes dormitories are no longer available, that we oftentimes forget about our community colleges. And that has been more and more prevalent, or youth homelessness among our community colleges has been much more prevalent, which is why I know they have continued to show up, and they have not missed a meeting that has focused on youth homelessness and particularly this effort. And so we're really excited about building capacity in this way and starting up this new formal partnership.
Thank you, Tanya. Do we have other questions and comments from board members? Dr. Davis, did you? Okay. Okay. Very good. Any questions or comments from the audience? How about from remote? Okay, very good. Tanya, thank you so much for all the information and what Karen shared earlier, her appreciation of all the work that your whole team did. I'm sure all of us are all equally thankful. So thank you, everybody. Okay, so we have a recommended motion to move forward.
So moved.
We have a maker of motion. Karen, is there a second?
Second.
Second?
Tanya,
Okay.
I'll make motion.
Oh, do we have somebody, a question from remote?
No, I thought you were looking for a motion. Are you looking for a motion?
We're looking for a motion. We were looking for a motion from the board. And so I think that we have that, but thank you so much.
Very good. So we have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Is there any noes? Any abstentions? There being none, it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Yes, lots of good resources going to the community.
Thank you again, team. And you have some work ahead of you this weekend. Okay, so next we have item 5.
I was gonna behave, but look, so the only question that I had is, so Riverside, UCR has a campus out in the Coachella Valley region, off Cook Street. Palm Desert is the city that we're in. My office is there. We've been promising for about, goodness gracious, about 7 years that we were going to expand our efforts as a school of medicine. I'm in the psychiatry and neuroscience department to offer mental health, behavioral health services to that underserved region in the low desert. The reason why I mentioned all of that is because we were talking about RCC, and I live right around the corner from Moreno Valley Community College, but there's homeless out in the Coachella Valley region, and I know that that's an extended area of Riverside County. Are we doing anything with COD, as an example? And that's what I was asking Anise, because she and I have done things with CVAG out there, Coachella Valley Associated Governments, but I don't know that the homeless youth who are going to College of the Desert are being targeted. And so maybe that can be an effort that we work on, but I'll allow you to answer the question and I'll behave again.
No, please ask as many questions as you want. I will say, we are working with College of the Desert. To that end, though, Dr. Kendrick Davis is, right, we always want to do more. But I just want to give credit to Jewish Family Services of the Desert, who, when College of the Desert reached out to me and expressed the same concerns that you had. Hey, we have students that are here that need access to housing. And usually universities will have a coordinator that is there to help provide resource linkages. And her name is escaping me, but she's a friend, and so this is embarrassing. But we linked her up with Jewish Family Services of the Desert, who services the region. And so they formulated a relationship so that as the college identified homeless youth, that they could link them up to their street outreach team, and then again, begin to connect them to the system of services. Again, I do believe that we can do more, that we should look for resources to do more. So to that end, we welcome any additional ideas that we can do to continue those conversations moving forward.
Thank you, Tanya. And you are not causing any problems by asking
Exactly.
questions. So we welcome those questions and comments. And I also just want to remind you, we have Palo Verde Community College out in Blythe. So hopefully they're also connected. Okay. Okay, and also my comment, I know we've already passed and this motion, but just my comment is I hope that the organizations that were not funded, that they received some feedback as to how they can improve their applications. Okay,
Love it.
so moving back to the agenda, we have 5.0. Any announcements from board members, starting with board members? Okay, down this way, down that way, none. Okay, staff, do you have any announcements? Okay. Okay, we will then move on to the next item, 6.0, call for agenda items for next meeting, starting with board members. Do you have any requests for any topics that you would like to have covered at next meeting?
Miss
Erin?
Tanya, when are we going to start talking about the pit? Because it's coming up in January 2025. And I think that as board members, we need to do everything possible to support the staff in this. Is a big effort, and we're going to blink and it is going to be here. So
That's exactly what it feels like. Blink of an eye. So we usually start planning for PIT and reaching out to cities and our partners in August. So it's coming up. August will be here before we know it, but it is definitely on high priority. And you know, I would encourage anybody that's listening today to, if you're a city, know that, again, we will be reaching out to you, and we look forward to a partnership because we recognize the importance of the count. I know we stress the importance of having the resources and how our federal and state dollars are impacted by the number of people that are counted. But we also know, again, any data, more data is good data that we can use to guide our efforts. But if there are people on the line that are interested in volunteering and can help us spread the word, it usually requires us to have over 800 volunteers. I think every year we have about 1,000 volunteers and 800 that actually show up the day of the count. And so this is a really good way for the community to get involved and to learn more about homelessness and the impact to local residents. And so the heavy lift is usually getting volunteers to show up. So if you're a part of any community groups, we would encourage you to help us spread the word. By August, we'll begin to put together some flyers that we can begin to share with the community. And from then on, it's like every meeting that we have will be about the point in time count. So
And
thank you
Madam
for that
Chair, I just
reminder.
want to acknowledge Tanya because I drug her into a regional presentation last night at 8 o'clock last night. But we had an opportunity to present before the Riverside Coordinating Council of the LDS Church, which they have an initiative called Just Serve, which mobilizes tons of volunteers. And so we presented on all of the opportunities to partner for the continuum of care, but especially the point in time count. And that's just one example of partnering with the faith community. So those of you that are in the audience and those of you that are listening, the more that we can partner with the faith community, no matter what faith, the better, because we're going to need as many volunteers as possible. So thank you, Tanya, you had a long day. And of course you said, yes, Karen, I will be with you at this 8 o'clock presentation.
Karen, it's my job to be there. But I thank you for coordinating it and taking this on. We always talk about you guys go above an extra beyond your role as a board member, as a COC chair. And I think that's an example of it, but happy to be there. As a mom, it was nice to get a little break from my little one just for, 30 minutes to do this presentation. So thank you.
Honestly, Tanya, I don't think it's just your job. I think it goes beyond that. So thank you. Okay, and so that is a topic for the next meeting then, the point in time. Okay, any other topics for the next meeting that you would like staff to bring back?
In all honesty, and I don't need a microphone, we have many grant efforts that we're on right now, that I'm playing a leading role. And one of the things that we try to do is have forums where we get together and share different folks who are leading different grant efforts with targeted community so that we can actually partner together and do more. And so I'd love to explore that, especially because the grants that I have right now are with the City of Hope. And even though it's cancer focused, if you look up correlations between factors that folks are facing in our communities, then there's a correlation between homelessness and cancer. There's a correlation between chronic diseases and being homeless. And so being at a school of medicine where we address disease and healthcare in our community, it might be a really good partnership for us to figure out ways, especially in areas where it's underserved, like the Coachella Valley, where we can partner and use our existing partnerships, funds, and interventions in order to have more of an impact. And so that's one of the things that I'd like to suggest, especially because we're actually moving our efforts more into the Coachella Valley region because it's so underserved. And so the fact that we already work with City of Hope with 2 cancer grants, we might want to see what we can do to build upon that moving forward. And so that's just something I wanted to plant a seed.
Okay, cool. Well, we have the idea, if we could have staff explore that a little bit further and tell us when you can bring that back for some sharing. Okay, any other ideas? Okay, very good. We will then move on to the next item, which is to announce the next meeting is planned for Thursday, August 15th at 9 a.m. in Banning, City of Banning. Okay, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nice job.
Have to drag me to the desert.
How are you?
I want to go.